Climate Week is about taking action to adopt known solutions to climate change and to promote creating resiliency, both as individuals and as professionals. And so you may have been reminded that Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina 1 year and actually 3 days ago today. And that just underscores the urgency that everyone has a role to play in avoiding the largest impacts of climate change. And for this session, we're talking about careers in doing that, careers in the environmental field, and just giving you a sense of the breadth of those opportunities that are out there, stories of how folks got into those roles, and just maybe giving you some ideas about how you'll proceed in your career. So I am going to get us started now, and we have just some great presenters today. We're going to get kicked off with Dan Crawford, who is the Senior Director of Public Affairs for the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me, Heather, and I want to thank everybody that's out there for coming. It's exciting to be a part of this process, and thank you for showing interest and coming to our talk. We'll talk a little bit about how I got here. It's kind of a long story, but they give me 8 minutes, so I will try to do my best. I am a mountain man. I was born in Asheville, so when Heather was talking about Helene, that's something that I can relate to. I don't think I've been back to Asheville since the hurricane without shedding some tears of seeing the destruction. But I come from very humble beginnings in the western part of the state, and luckily my family missed most of the damage and survived. Came out. We had survivor's guilt. We came out so well from the hurricane. But I grew up in the mountains, and so somebody asked me how I didn't know you were an environmentalist when I took this job 17 and a half years ago. And I tell them it's like, well, I'm from the mountains. I was born an environmentalist. The environment is my birthright. As someone that comes from the mountains, and I truly love the mountains. I love the coast. I love North Carolina, all that things. But how did I get here? So I started out at college at Mars Hill University, a small private Baptist college in the mountains of North Carolina. And like so many people, when they start college, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up. I'm 50 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I think this might be it. It's been a great life, and I'm very fortunate. I get up every day, and I get to do what I want. I get to try to make a difference, and um, try to make the world a better place. And so, like I said, I started at Marcel University. I transferred over to NC State. If you can't tell behind me, I'm calling you from the state room uh, here in my house. And I didn't know, when I got there, I majored in political science. And, that's kind of a broad thing. I think many people thought with a political science degree, I'd be well equipped to go manage a Walgreens or a CVS pharmacy. But I said, no, really, I'm going to go into politics. And that's what I've managed to do. And, I'll just go ahead and realize that what's politics have to do with the environment? Well, I promise I'm going to put a bow on this in the next 6 minutes that I have time remaining. I graduated from North Carolina State with a political science degree, and my first job out of college was with the at the North Carolina General Assembly, and that's where the North Carolina legislators, the North Carolina House of Representatives, the North Carolina Senate meet to make laws for North Carolina, and I worked for a state senator. And my very first day on the job was the start of negotiations for what became the North Carolina Smokestacks Act. And what the North Carolina Smokestacks Act, Google it after this session, but at the time it gave North Carolina some of the most stringent clean air laws in the country. And moreover, Section 4, I believe, of the law said that once North Carolina cleaned up our air, we could go after others because, as we know, air is ambient. So what was causing our pollution wasn't just from North Carolina; it was coming in from the Tennessee Valley Authority. So what we did is we required Duke Energy to put scrubbers to clean up their coal-fired power plants, and that wound up reducing their emissions by 95%. And then we sued TVA, and they actually wound up having to pay us millions of dollars because of the pollution that they were doing in North Carolina. And but when I left that first meeting, on one side of the table it was Duke Energy, and on the other side of the table was environmentalists, the environmental community from North Carolina. And sitting there, we walked out of that meeting, and my boss was State Senator Steve Metcalf. He told me, he's like, "Son, you don't tell anybody what you saw in that room today, because stuff like that doesn't happen every day in North Carolina." And as we started those negotiations, that was probably that was in 2001. Finally, 5 years later, after I'd long left that job and took another job in politics, the North Carolina Clean Smokestack Act finally passed. And like I said, it gave us some of the cleanest air restrictions in North Carolina. And I tell you that the one to tell you how it takes a long time often to have such movement on the political side, on the legislative side, when you're talking about major pieces of legislation. But what that did was, give us those laws and hold Duke Energy accountable for what they had been doing in polluting our air. And during that side, I looked and said, hey, like, the two sides of the table, Duke Energy represent does not represent me, and the environmental side did. And that's where I met my current organization that I work for, the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters, and I became involved in that with them and started on their PAC board. The League of Conservation Voters is unique. We're a family of organizations. We have a C3, a C4, and we have a PAC, a political action committees. And what we say is we do the environment, we do the politics of the environment. So who we elect matters. So as senior director of public affairs for the League of Conservation Voters, I have two jobs. I lobby the General Assembly for environmental protections, which is really hard right now, as you can imagine, with not just what's happening in the world, but what's happening in North Carolina. But we also do the politics. So we try to elect pro-conservation members to the General Assembly, whether they're Democrat or Republican. If you believe in climate change and want to fix it, then we might support you in your campaign. I'll let you think about that for a second and see who we select most of the time that supports climate change. But we are a bipartisan organization. So every day I get up and go to work, and I try to decide what am I going to do to make the environment a better place, and whether that's at the legislature or on the political front, and that's what keeps me busy most of my days. And I got a piece right now from what's called the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, and it's a roundup of all the environmental legislation that's passed across the country this year. And so what I've been working on this week is looking at some of the laws that passed across the country and seeing if there's opportunity for us to pass something similar here in North Carolina. And as 8 minutes went a lot quicker than I thought it was, but to be respectful to my other panelists and colleagues on here, I'm going to stop there. But that's how I got into the environment. And my one takeaway would be, if you want to get involved with us, with the environment, whatever you want to do, find an organization that might represent your values, does the job that you want to do, and volunteer. So like me, I volunteered for the PAC board to be on their political action committee. And then it led to a job where I've been doing this for 17 and a half years. And so get your foot in the door, bust your tail, and you can do it too. And it's a lot of fun. Like I said, my family, my mom retired a couple of years ago from a manufacturing plant. That's work. I get up every day and hopefully try to make the world a better place with clean air, clean water, and the world we live in. So thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to your questions later on.
Dan, that was fantastic. And when I first started in this field, I loved to tell the story of Clean Smokestacks Bill, because or Act. I'm not in policy, so I don't might not use the right terms, but at the time there were 14 nonprofit organizations that I could count that were a part of making that happen. And to me, that just underlined the importance of good people getting into the environmental community and nonprofits to do this work. So thank
If I were at my desk, I could hold up a pen that was used by the governor to sign that bill. My boss, who was not my boss at the time, I did get to go to the bill signing, and I did get a pen from the signing of the Clean Smokestacks Act.
Fantastic. That's great. All right. Thank you, Dan. And The next to join us is Tawanda Muzhingi, and a new friend of mine. And Tawanda is the executive director for Global Forum for Plant-Based and Alternative Proteins. And we welcome you to talk with us about your work. Right. And you may be on mute. Just make sure.
Okay, now
There we go. There we go.
well, thank you, everybody. My name is Tawanda Muzhingi. As Heather said, I'm the executive director and founder of a nonprofit entity, a new nonprofit entity called the Global Forum for Plant-Based and Alternative Proteins. I'm based here in North Carolina. I live in Holly Springs. So I started my career. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I started nutrition, human nutrition. Back then, I moved to the States, went to Tufts University in Boston, and I did my master's degree in food policy and applied nutrition. Then I realized I needed more science, and I did my PhD in molecular nutrition and physiology. And then I started my career at Tufts University doing clinical trials to see how plants and plant pigments can help people live better, live well. Then I discovered the power of plants to transform livelihoods. So I moved to Kenya and started working on research internationally, supporting smallholder farmers who were growing sweet potato to provide them with good nutrition and good income. Then I started working with food companies on innovation of sweet potato and started doing other crops like cassava and yams to see how they can improve the lives of smallholder farmers. That's where I came first in touch with the effects of climate change on their livelihoods and their potential to give nourishment to their kids. I wanted to be part of efforts to improve resilience towards climate change and also improving people's health. Then I worked briefly for RTI after COVID here in the Triangle, working on food innovation and worked for the Plant-Based Foods Association as the Director of International Programs. I'm also an adjunct professor at NC State in the Department of Food, Bioprocessing, and Nutrition Science, just helping food students that are interested in sustainability and food innovation. So today I'm just here to talk to you briefly about the careers that young people, people who are in transition can pursue in this field that we call alternative proteins. Okay. So why does food sustainability matters? We can't argue that the climate around us is changing, and this has impact on food security and population growth. And we see the impact coming from greenhouse emissions, impact on water, land, biodiversity loss. So there is a need for us to kind of play our role in transforming the food system. And the way we produce food has a big impact on climate and climate change. I think about 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the way we produce and eat food. So we need to change the way that we eat food for us to live better, for us to take care of the environment better. So basically, there is no a universally agreed definition to work around sustainable diets, sustainable food systems, but there is a universally agreed need to transform our food system so that it responds better. So we can look at this from in terms of sustainable diet, from an environmental standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from a health and nutrition standpoint, from a social, cultural accessibility standpoint, and ethics. So actually, these are pillars of careers that students or other people who are in career transition can start to look at. You can tackle this issue from an environmental side, from economics, health and nutrition, sociology, anthropology, and also even on the ethics side. So there are also ways in which you can work on this from the production side of food system where you can be involved with agriculture, farming systems. Now there's a move towards regenerative agriculture, supporting initiatives that conserve the biodiversity at the same time producing food that nourishes people in an environmentally friendly way. And regenerative agriculture, the great thing about it, it builds resilience. And also we see the role of alternative proteins kind of boosting our food supply chains in different ways through sustainable sourcing, also advancing equity issues and livelihoods that are critical to our societal issues, and also creating domestic demand and supply to our local communities so that our local farmers actually benefit from this. So, from a food science perspective, regenerative agriculture can actually support local processing initiatives and market development. So, those who are interested in food science, how can cover crops uh, produce better for you products that people are looking for? Cover crops like oats, legumes are very nutritious, they're good for the environment. Cover crops like buckwheat are also great, but many of these are underutilized in terms of science and innovation. So that's a space for you guys to innovate and create a career around this. You can see that in other states, in the northern parts of the U.S., there's investments in oat processing, which had disappeared for many years, is slowly coming back. Canada dominated this sector. There's also need to promote this kind of activity here in the South, where farmers can adopt these new crops that are good for the environment, good for human health. There are also other crops such as sorghum that many people here are not familiar with, but they are great for climate change and resilience that can be incorporated into high value crops, high value food products that are good for the environment, good for health, and good for livelihoods. This is an opportunity to connect agriculture, food science, and innovation to climate change and resilience. You can see big companies like Patagonia that are known for their apparel now also venturing into food processing and food production because of their concerns to be environmentally friendly and a sustainable company. You can also see companies like Oatly that are big internationally investing in farmers in New York State that can transition to plant-based milks that were traditionally dairy, but they can get more income opportunity by venturing into plant-based alternatives. Startups like What If Foods are innovating around other very unknown crops like bambara nut. I'm sure many of you have never heard of bambara nut, but it's a crop that I grew up eating in Zimbabwe. They're making plant-based milks out of this, and they're selling these products on Amazon and growing globally. This is how the power of innovation that helps smallholder farmers in developing countries, providing sustainable ways people can eat. So there's opportunities in terms of marketing some of these products so that they reach consumers everywhere across the globe. So, in terms of alternative proteins, you can think of grains or pulses, peas, soy, chickpea that can be used in making alternative meat products or alternative dairy products that can create new and interesting food products that have lesser environmental damage compared to traditional agriculture. So there is, as I mentioned, opportunities for careers in this area in terms of consumer health, animal welfare, also research opportunities with NC State or other academic institutions across the nation, working for companies in terms of industry, working in Washington, D.C. or here in Raleigh, advocating for policies that are good for the environment and also just joining the startup ecosystem, helping entrepreneurs scale their innovations so they can have massive impact. These are some of the career pathways in terms of food sustainability, food innovation, nutrition, food safety, crop science. When you go into policy and development, you can have food security programs, sustainability, working with nonprofits, entrepreneurship on product development, supply chain management, and just supporting startups. What are some of the skills you need? We recently had a webinar in July where we had in Ask Me Anything. We brought experts from across the globe with different expertise that are working in the alternative protein space. You don't need to be a food scientist or a scientist to work in the space. You can come from a sociology background, a marketing background, whatever background you have, it is required to transform the way we eat food. Basically, food science helps, nutrition technology, they help on the technological side, but there are there's everything for everybody in this type of career. And it's a growing career because of the demand that's growing out there among consumers to eat in a way that is environmentally friendly and that is good for their health. So we see some emerging trends like precision fermentation, cultivated meat, meat hybrids, use of indigenous crops, like I mentioned, sorghum before, the adoption of regenerative agriculture, incorporation of artificial intelligence and data in terms of food system transformation, new market and consumer segments for plant proteins. So there are challenges that need to be overcome in the industry where you can apply your skills. Prime among those is production and scaling, the cost and affordability of some of these innovations, consumer acceptance and cultural fits, policy and also regulatory hurdles. These are new, novel foods that most people are not familiar with. There are no regulations in place. So you can actually start from the ground and build something new. So this is an exciting space to be. Advice for students and early career professionals, I will encourage you to be curious. I'm sure by being here, you're already curious. Stay curious. This is a multidisciplinary platform where multiple skills are required, multiple talents are required to move the industry forward, build networks, connect with professors, connect with industry leaders, go on LinkedIn and see who are the big voices in the industry, who's working at what organizations, see what different nonprofits are doing locally, nationally, and internationally. You can also check what the federal government is doing, what the EPA, USDA, and other regulatory bodies. Seek internships, paid and unpaid. There are lots of fellowships around or research opportunities that you can tag along, and also act locally, but in the end, think globally because we're here to save our planet for the future generations. I'll stop here. I can keep on going, but I want to leave room for other panelists to talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tawanda. That was so interesting, and I really look forward to learning more about your work. I am going to pass it now to Sarah Hallas with North Carolina Coastal Federation. Sarah, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon. I'm thankful for everyone that's here today. Are you able to see my view slide?
I can. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio and always had a love and interest in science and the environment. And I went to school at Wittenberg University, which is in more Southwest Ohio, and have a Bachelor of Science in Biology. And that's what brought me to move south to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where I first worked at the North Carolina Aquarium on Roanoke Island, which for students and young professionals, I'd encourage you to search through. There's a zoo and aquarium website that has a lot of great entry-level positions, and a great way to get experience in the field, and to learn and to meet people. And that's what led me to the career I have now with the North Carolina Coastal Federation. We are a nonprofit organization with offices all along the coast. I'm talking to you from our Wanchese office, but we also have one near Morehead City and also one near Wrightsville Beach. So these would also be great places to join us for events or to volunteer or seek out internship opportunities. But we've been working to protect water quality since 1982. Even starting your own nonprofit could be a career endeavor. You see a challenge in your community, you could be the source of that solution, which is essentially how the Coastal Federation was founded, initially by our former executive director, who saw challenges with water quality along the North Carolina coast and development taking off, and he wanted to do something about protecting it. And so he built the organization that we are today. And my job is to be the environmental educator, but I was going to focus on our restoration projects because I know Michelle's going to talk to you more about environmental education. But my favorite part of my job is that there's so much variety in working for a nonprofit, in visiting students in the schools, taking them on field trips. This morning we were working in a rain garden to restore and maintain, and then in the office with you all this afternoon. And so our work takes us around in the community in different ways to protect water quality. And I was going to highlight just a few of those to also explain my career pathway, and also my topic for you today was community resilience and natural resource management. And a lot of our projects are protecting water quality and also playing a big role as far as climate goes, and being able to store carbon is a big role that a lot of these native plantings play, including building rain gardens that we would do in our communities, both at our offices. You could do this in your own backyard by putting native plants, finding a way to trap and treat stormwater runoff before it becomes runoff and carries water pollution out to our waterways. And so that is the number one cause of water pollution. And our solutions are to mimic nature. So we can create these depressions to trap and absorb it. Another way we can do this all along our shorelines are through projects that we call living shorelines. Jockey's Ridge State Park is one of the most visited state parks in North Carolina, and so I hope you've been there, and if not, invite you to go. If you climb the sand dune and get to the sound side, this is a before picture of what our project looked like before we installed the living shoreline, and a couple pictures after what it looks like today. So that included putting in like a wave energy barrier, so there's a speed bump out there in the water, and we did all those native grass plantings from the water's edge to the base of the dune. Propagating native plants is another career that I would love young professionals to pursue. We have trouble acquiring enough native plants that we need for our projects. And I was just speaking with the horticulturist at the aquarium today. It's a challenge to have enough native plants sourced, even to compete with Lowe's and Home Depot, where it's easy for people to go shopping and find non-native plants. So this is a success. So we can look across the shoreline and not see spaces of sand between the plants. And so sometimes even just taking a picture in your own backyard to see how the environment is changing over time is an easy way of monitoring and maintaining progress. Another way that we're going to restore and protect our water quality is by encouraging oysters to grow. An oyster is a natural filter itself. In order to survive, it's pulling water in to eat and breathe and pushing that water right back out. And so you see those two tanks of water, one that has oysters and one that does not. It would take about an hour or so to get to that before and after. So we're going to find sites that are suitable for oysters to grow because one oyster can filter 50 gallons of water a day. And so if we have more oysters in the water, we'd have more water quality filtered. And I know you get oysters across the state, and if you do, we would encourage you to recycle those oyster shells. We put them back in the water because it's a valuable resource. In order for an oyster to grow, the larvae needs a solid surface area to stick onto and go through its life cycle. So we put those shells back into the water where we harvest oysters, so that they have a place to keep building their reefs and their habitat. Another major program of ours to protect water quality is to reduce marine debris. I try to put all my pictures on this one slide. So marine debris is from trash on the side of the road, to boats, to actually houses falling in. Actually, that was our current event today. 5 more houses fell in the ocean in Buxton today. So we have real problems on our coast, and we don't have all the answers, and we don't have all of the solutions. And so I hope there's there's some young professionals that are going to help us think creatively to keep our coast and our habitats protected. And so we work to remove marine debris. Our top item is treated wood that we have been finding from docks and piers that wash out from storms. And so we work towards policy to have better building codes to prevent this the wood debris. So if we have better structures, then we wouldn't have some of the challenges that we do have. And that's something that we can all play a role in. If you do a marine debris cleanup on your own, there's free apps that you can use to help us to collect data, even if it's just around your school grounds or in your community on your walk home from school. If you can help us to track the type of trash and litter that you are picking up, then it would go to a big database that scientists can use to help to solve the problem and work towards policy and prevention so that we're just not cleaning up after each other all the time. And one of the best ways to get involved is to start learning. We have really great resources with the Coastal Federation through our website. You can follow us on social media. But a really great tool also is our Coastal Review Online, an online newspaper that we started as a way to get the word out as far as environmental concerns go. There's really relevant stories that we also have a Google Classroom link that you can use within your schools or on your own to read up on what some of the issues are and be more informed and help us to make the best decisions to keep our environment protected. And of course, there's other ways to follow us if you're on the coast and are able to come to one of our volunteer events, or even just sharing something that you learned today as a way to help us to reach our message farther. And I do appreciate you all joining today and taking the chance to learn and explore. And I'm happy to be a resource anytime in the future. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you. It's clear while you are the education coordinator at Coastal Fed, I'm glad you found them and they found you. And I think that's a second time I've heard that message of just get your foot in there, go volunteer, get to know the people who are running these organizations and find your way, because they're just amazing opportunities to make an impact. So thank you, Sarah. And now I get to invite Michelle Pierce, programming lead for the Environmental Educators of North Carolina, who is here to speak with us as well. So thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. Let me open this. So yes, Environmental Educators of North Carolina, that's the organization that I'm with. I'll give you some background on them here in just a minute, but since we are talking about careers, I will follow suit and kind of share a little bit about how I got here to this organization. These are very brief bullet points, so I'll go in depth in a little bit more. But I have a bachelor's degree in biology with an emphasis in life science. That was after a redirection from pre-veterinary medicine. I thought for a really long time I wanted to work with animals or on animals, and also knew that I wasn't good at physics, and so wasn't gonna do well in pre-veterinary medicine, but still really liked biology and specifically life sciences because it was very general. And I got to do everything from ecology and botany to genetics and cell bio, and just kind of covered everything in the life sciences. And it was really interesting, and I enjoyed it a whole bunch. My first job out of college was in environmental ed because I went to a liberal arts college, and you had to take so many different things to be a well-rounded human in the world. And one of the requirements for me as a biology major was also to take a nature interpretation class. And I realized in that one semester of nature interpretation, where we did things like went through national curriculum guides like Project Wet or Project Wild, and had to do lessons and things like that, and like teach people about cool nature facts, that was the thing that I had been doing since I was a kid, and I didn't know that it was a job. And it was one of the coolest realizations ever. And so I found websites that I believe like still exist now, 19 years later, that helped me find my first job out of college. And I worked in a lot of seasonal jobs in environmental ed. I moved from Northwest Ohio, Sarah, so we are rivals across the state. I moved from Northwest Ohio to North Carolina, and my first job was at YMCA Camp Thunderbird Environmental Education Center. So North Carolina natives, you might be familiar with that camp. And worked at summer camps. I've worked for Wake County Parks and Rec as an educator. I've worked for arboretums. I've worked for after school programs, but always kind of keeping that focus in environmental ed because it was something that I fell in love with, and thought that it was just a really vast field that included playing outside and exploring nature and being with students of all ages. And the professional learning alone is really fun because it's workshops where like you learn games and activities that you get to do with both kids and adults. You get really great introductions into awesome books and like storytelling books and things like that, just really beautiful things. And eventually decided to get my master's. I did not do that right out of college. I waited I guess technically a really long time to decide to get my master's, but I got my master's from East Carolina University. It's a Master of Arts in Education with a focus in science education. And it was an online cohort, which was really cool. And I was one of two non-formal educators in that cohort. And it was like one of their first cohorts that they did. And so while it was designed for classroom teachers who wanted to grow in their science education, I got to bring in a lot of non-formal science background and how do we do all of these things that teachers need to do in a non-formal setting, and how do we bridge this language between formal and informal teaching when we talk about science education and social studies and things like that. And so it really stuck with the things that I had become passionate about over the years in my career when it came to education. And included things like how do we make this an inclusive learning experience? How do we make it an accessible learning experience? And so all of that mattered to what I was doing. And eventually landed a full-time vested position with the state of North Carolina, but decided to leave that, which was a very brave thing, but it's because I had a young child at home and was starting school, and I wanted to be more available for those school day things and sick days and all of that. And I had been with the Environmental Educators of North Carolina for a while, both as a member, I was a board member, I was the previous president of the organization, and they had decided they wanted a programming staff member. And it kind of just put everything together that I had been doing for many, many years in my career in terms of developing programs and supporting educators and what they needed. And there's a lot of research involved too, in terms of evaluation and things like that. And it was all things that I'd come to love, and it was a perfect fit. And so this organization that I am a part of, Environmental Educators of North Carolina, this is our mission, to build connections, provide professional development, and promote excellence for North Carolina's community of environmental educators. A lot of folks ask, well, who is an environmental educator? And there are many all over the place. This panel is a selection of environmental educators because they are telling you about the amazing things that they do that are connected to the environment. So that makes us all environmental educators. They are park staff, they are arboretum staff, nature center staff, aquariums, soil and water, solid waste and recycling, air quality. They're everywhere, all over. There's many, many different types of environmental educators across the state. And I wanted to give you a little bit of information about how our organization fits both in our state and across the country, because we are in a really unique position as a nonprofit in the state. So the blue arrows are like connections across the country, green arrows being kind of connections a little more in-house here. So the North American Association for Environmental Education is international organization for environmental ed. We are an affiliate of that organization. So a lot of things like big research that's coming through environmental ed about best practices and things like that comes from them. And so we have a direct connection to a lot of really great research, and we share that. Then we're able to share that with our membership and constituents and things like, not constituents, but participants. We're also an affiliate of the Southeastern Environmental Education Alliance. So those 8 Southeastern states, we work together as a network as well to share resources. We partner on grants and big projects and things like that. And then in state, you may have heard of the North Carolina Environmental Education, or the Office of North Carolina Environmental Education and Public Affairs. That office is housed in our Department of Environmental Quality. So it's a state office, and it actually manages a certification program. So you can be a certified environmental educator in the state of North Carolina. They just basically manage the hours of, like, are you turning in your hours and completing the certification? EE&C has the really great opportunity to provide professional development that supports those hours. And so we work in tandem quite a bit. EE&C is turning 35 next year. We're really excited. And we have been in partnership with the Office of EE for all of those years since their existence. So I will just add just some skills, and I've talked a little bit about some careers, but some of the skills, especially in environmental ed, that we really look for as someone who's going to, if you're looking to be an educator, we look for that ability to talk to people and to be around people and to communicate. Hard sciences are not a requirement for this field because we can teach you how to identify birds and trees, and we can have conversations about ecosystem interactions, and you can learn that. But it's really like, can you connect with your audience? That's really, really important, because the goal of environmental ed is to create connection, because then through connection, we see caring, and through caring, we see action. And so through that, like, we're kind of the foundation. When you hear from these other organizations, to get folks into those fields, we want them to care first. And so we're trying to get that level of caring and investment in there first. So that's the biggest one. And a takeaway I would say is look into what EE&C does. We are member-based, but you don't have to be a member to participate in any of our programs. We are a networking organization as well. And so we have student portions, we have student membership, teacher membership. We have online classes that are just asynchronous plus in-person workshops, and get to know this community. There are a lot of us around the state, and it's a lot of really great pathways into a lot of different ways that you can work in this field.
Fantastic. Michelle, thank you so much. And I'm glad you said that thing of you don't have to be a scientist. That was why I thought I wasn't going to be a part of the field for a long time. So that is exactly right. Wonderful information. Thank you. As I said in the chat, we are going to have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. Go ahead and start putting your questions in there if you have them, so that we can take advantage of that last few minutes together. Now I'm going to hand it over to Will Parker. Will is the commercial project manager for Cape Fear Solar Systems in Wilmington?
Wilmington, that's right.
Good guess. All right. Thank you, Will.
Thank you so much for organizing this, and thank you everyone for joining, and all of my fellow presenters. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'll give you an introduction to the solar industry and my perspectives and experience within it. I wanted to first highlight the photo I included here. It's a recent development. We're just finishing up, finalizing our testing and about to activate it. It's near Tabor City, and it's for a correctional institution there. And it's in a partnership with the North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation, specifically Brunswick Electric, and in conjunction with the NC DEQ. And it was a request for them to include some native pollinator plants and flowers and grasses within the solar field. So this is the photo we took the other week. You can see there's a small bee enjoying one of the flowers there. So just wanted to highlight that these utility scale solar projects not only are producing clean energy for the grid, but it can also be a green space. And I'll touch more on that in a little bit. But first, I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself. Uh, like was mentioned, I'm the commercial project manager at Cape Fear Solar Systems. Started my journey within the solar industry in 2019, first working as a rooftop installer as a summer job in the summer of 2019, and then again in the summer of 2020. But then with the 2020 pandemic, took some time away from school and decided to work full time at Cape Fear Solar for a number of years to gain experience there. I was studying at NC State in industrial engineering, and since 2016, but took some time away, and then returned a couple years back and finished my undergraduate there in industrial engineering. But just wanted to highlight that there's no one clear path to any specific industry or any field, as long as you're gaining useful experience in the workplace. Again, I started on the rooftop installing the panels, worked after that within the troubleshooting and our service team, and then moved into inspections and permitting, and then into our commercial division shortly after that. So just a short intro about our company, Cape Fear Solar Systems. We were founded here in Wilmington, where I'm from, in 2007, and we install solar systems, including battery and EV charger technology as well, providing clean energy for primarily residencies in our region, but also for commercial and industrial facilities and municipal and educational institutions. We recently finished up 2 projects for New Hanover County, one at their landfill and one at the new library and museum expansion, Project Grace in downtown Wilmington, solar canopy there. We've done a number of installations for different industrial facilities and manufacturing facilities off Highway 421. So my schooling experience gave me some insight into those industrial processes, which allows me to relate to those customers, but didn't receive any formal training within the solar industry at university. I was able to gain all of that experience through on-site and work experience with the company. Just to give a brief simplified rundown of solar energy technologies, the sunlight energizes the photons on the silicon panels, which creates a DC energy, which needs to be inverted by the inverter technology to usable AC energy. So from direct current to alternating current, which is what's used in our homes and offices and all our facilities and buildings. That energy is then transferred from the inverter to the point of interconnection or point of common coupling within the main electrical panel of whatever the building is. And any excess energy is pushed back to the grid through the utilities meter. I just want to emphasize that there are job opportunities, work opportunities at every step of the installation process. Again, from installing the panels themselves, we have a strong team of electricians, which is always an in-demand skill set, is the ability to understand electrical systems, but then the behind-the-scenes work, permitting with the local towns or counties, and then working with all the various utilities, primarily Duke Energy is a big one we work with throughout the state, and then all the local electric cooperatives. It's important that we maintain a good rapport with them so we can safely interconnect to the larger grid. And then again, we have some larger scale projects that we do in tandem with them on the utility scale side of things. So this is just a simplified model of a home showing how solar can seamlessly be integrated and charge all the appliances within the building, including charging up a battery, which can be used for off-grid applications, say the power goes out in the event of a serious storm. And then you can also have an EV charger, which can charge your electric vehicle and use those clean kilowatt hours to move you around town. I also want to highlight that agrivoltaics is a growing sector within the solar industry. Pictured here is farmers are growing some leafy green crops, but any crops can be grown in tandem, co-located with the solar arrays, which could provide beneficial shade for the crops at certain times of the day, which could improve irrigation efficiencies. Um, the panels themselves can even collect dew and provide some moderate drip irrigation. So agrivoltaics are being explored more and more throughout the industry, not just for food crops, but for livestock, such as sheep grazing or rearing other livestock within the same areas. And we're in the process of working with UNCW to set up a test site, small test site for agrivoltaics to study crop yields on their campus. Here's just some examples of some solar panel manufacturers, just a few examples that we work with, but these are just a small list of dozens of others, just showing the size of the industry. And each of these companies need workers within them, not just to develop new technologies through material sciences, but also to optimize the manufacturing processes and distribution. One company that's not listed here is Boviet Solar, but they just recently opened or announced an opening of a facility here in our state in Greenville. So that's going to bring a lot of jobs to the region and provide a local source for these solar panels. Here's a small list of inverter manufacturers that we work with, but again, it's a list, selective list out of dozens of other companies out there. Most notable on here, most recognizable may be Tesla, as they also produce a lot of electric vehicles and battery technologies as well. So there's a lot of potential growth within the sector, not just in solar, but also in the electrification of all of our appliances and providing energy in the event of outages as well. So here's an event, RE Plus, which is an annual event which showcases all the sectors and industries throughout renewable energy space. And these are the numbers from the 2024 exhibition. So it's even grown this year in 2025. I haven't had the opportunity to attend, but I've had colleagues that attend each year, and it just shows that how the industry's growth and the trajectory in which it's heading. And I think it's important to note out that the International Energy Agency recently published that the solar energy is estimated to become the cheapest form of electricity in history, as compared to the coal and natural gas, as low as $20 per megawatt hour. Obviously, this is location dependent and needs to be in an area with sufficient solar radiation. But not only is solar energy relatively clean compared to natural gas and coal, but it's also rapidly becoming the cheapest source for large-scale utility applications. And I think it's important to note the sort of the certifying body gold standard within the industry is NABCEP, which is the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, which offer courses, training, and certifications within the industry, starting out with an associate's credential, and then you can study further and become an installation professional certified, or technical sales. You can join within the sales side of things. Design specialist, which one of our staff was just recently achieved that within the past couple months, and he was the first within the state to achieve that credential. And then energy storage installation professional, we recently had an electrician just last month get that credential, and he was only the second in the state. So just highlighting that it's a relatively new industry still a lot of room to grow, and a lot of opportunities within the space. And here are just some other resources I'd like to note where you can learn some more about renewable energy technologies and electrical applications at large.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to attempt to highlight you all, but you all, there are some great questions in the Q&A. I'm going to ask the speakers, can you all see the Q&A and just grab questions, or I can pose some of them. One of them is just kind of the most general one is what job boards to look at. And I can say, the North Carolina Conservation Network has a job board. If others of you are on the call who know where folks look for jobs in your particular fields, pop those into the chat, if you will. Another question that we have here is someone interested in going into the ecological restoration field, starting as a field technician, and wanted to ask, what are the different career paths in this field, and what is the path you would take to get there?
I hope the panel helped cover some of those things today. I think North Carolina is an awesome place for all of our state parks and national park sites as well. As far as visiting those places, I mean, me even like participating in programs, learning about their careers and the work that they do to protect our natural resources could be something different that we didn't cover really today. So it would maybe depend on your location or how willing you are to travel or relocate. I know some states also still have AmeriCorps or something similar that would offer, a temporary experience for you to travel and commit to, a service position for a short amount of time. And that's a great way to get experience, and get involved without making a huge commitment. And then you decide which direction you want to move in from there. Conservingcarolina.org is one Heather shared.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you for sharing that. And conservingcarolina.org is one of the organizations that uses the AmeriCorps volunteers and others, and is a great organization to get involved with. I am going to put here in the chat NC Climate Week.org summit. This is a fantastic place if you want to meet people. There were several questions about how do I break into the field? Where do I start? There are going to be just a great number of people to network with and meet there. The tickets for students are only $25. So it's a small way or price to get in and to get to meet people just working across these fields. I had a question about how do I participate if I'm in finance. This question about ecological restoration. There's all sorts of entry points, and there'll be a lot of those people there this Friday.
I'll add that EENC is looking for board members, and if you're in finance, we need a treasurer.
There you go. Yes, that is a good point. We spoke to volunteering before, and often that volunteer need is high-level skilled volunteers through board service or taking on a pro bono project. So we are at the hour, and I don't want to take any extra time that I had originally asked for from you all, but thank you so much for being here. Yeah, man, I wrote down agrivoltaics. If I was starting in the field right now, I would just be like, how do I sell that? That's so cool. So thank you for bringing that to the table. All right. Well, happy Climate Week. Thank you again for your time. Have a good evening.